Welcome back to Discovering Dataflex. And we are looking at our grid view that's now a grid list that is now starting to take shape here. These columns here is actually a percentage width. So I would love to be able to set this to a fixed width. I'm not sure if I can do that, but I'm going to try. If we set a pixel value here, it's an integer, so that won't work. So we have max width image with height p. Fixed width. So that would make it into pixels, and then 20 seems to be a little bit on the low side. So we're going to change that to 30. See how this works. Yeah, that looks much better. So if we look at the code here, we can see call group, it's setting pixels instead. So if we set fixed width, we get pixels. Otherwise, it's a percentage of the width. Always good to know. It's a nice feature. Now let's continue here to work with this list. We would like to have a feature that after we add a row, or after we added all the rows, perhaps, yeah, I think after all the rows is enough. We're going to add a function that can count how many errors we got. So I want a perhaps a label, we could say. So we're adding a label. And we set that to errors 0 as default. And I want it to be align left, if that's possible. Label align. No, right. Can we do that? Label position. Right, no. P align. There we are. So we want to align the text to the left. And then I'm going to add a button here. It's going to create a humongous button, but we just want it to be like that. And gonna move slightly. And we're going to call that calculate. We're not going to use the button later on, but for now, for testing purposes, we're going to use this button. Otherwise, when the unit test has run after the all the rows has been added, we are going to call this function that we're going to make now, or this procedure, to calculate this. But for now, we're going to do it in a button. And we're adding a few lines, and if this image says red light, then it's an error and we want to count it. If it doesn't say red light, we don't want to count it. So how do we go about this? So again, we're going into the web grid to see what methods we have to read rows or get data. Get column objects returns the column object of the past column ID. Load grid row. Manually loading data, but that is let's see. First row. Here we have something. We can move to a specific row, but we cannot really use these to traverse the rows in the list, because these are also done after. So the changes in the interface are actually made after the procedure has been run. So when it's sending an update call to the server. So if we add move to last row and then read the values, then it will still read the values from the row we're standing on, not the last row, but the row we're actually on currently. And then it will move the cursor to the last row. So this is not a good options. I've already played around with that. Okay, I don't see any particular function like we have the append row, like get row data or read row or something like that, that would actually indicate that we can get the row using a method. But I do know that we have events, and we have a event that called OnProcessData. And if we run OnProcessData, we actually get all the rows in an array right here. It's called AData. And here we have the value, row data values. So we're going to implement this one in our grid list. And oh, that one I actually wanted to add inside the web grid. It's strange that that worked, but this one was supposed to be inside there. So here and here. Now we only need to make sure that this is called. So you can look at this as the grid list. We cannot tell it to give us a row, but we can ask it to process the rows. And we actually have this E operation where we can send an integer to tell it what we want it to do. And here's a little pro tip that you should not do, like if E operation equals 1 and start begin and start making if cases like this. I would highly encourage you to actually do a procedure call right here. Send and what you want to do. And in this case, we want to count errors. And since we're inside this object, we don't have to do an object reference, but we want a data included here. So as you add more options, it's just going to say different function names. It will be much easier to read. You have like count, total, count, yeah, what have you. So already from the beginning, we're going to keep this as clean as possible to make it easier to read and find these procedures. Now we're going to create a procedure error count, and it's going to have a T web array, a data. Now we are going to loop through this. It means we need a counter, and we need an size and an I total. And the I total is the one that we're going to update this object with. So we are going to call this the error count. And we're actually going to update the PS caption. Just copy this down here. So in the end, when we're done, we're going to do a web set PS caption of that object to this, but instead of 0, we actually going to include the string. And by now you should know that integers don't go well with strings, so we need to convert it to a string for this to work. And that should be it, and we can actually now try. Yeah, we're going to activate this one when we click this button here. Send process dataset of code test list. So that's all we're going to do now. That will, yeah, we also need to say that it's the first one. Count errors, that's the function for number 1. So we go in here, we have number 1, we call count errors, we get in here, and for now we're going to move 99 to I total. So when this button is clicked, this should update to 99. So let's see if that works, just to make sure we have the logistics in place. It compiles, and we test calculate, and it says 99. Perfect. Now we want to add some rows, and then it's going to calculate the errors. So what we want to do is we want to loop. So while I count less than I size, and loop this and check if a data I count and dot a cells 0 dot, and here we actually need to look at the options 0, because that was we ended up adding. So if you look here in our image, it's the 0 option. So we want to check if that is red lights. And count error there equals 2 red lights. Again. And then we want to increment total. And we always want to increment count, because otherwise we're in an infinite loop here. And just for good practice, we want to move 0 to I count, and we want to move array size of array, a data, size. And then it should actually count the number of errors, increment the total, and show us that. So let's see how that goes. We might also, stop that, stop, go back. We also want to do this to the itotal. Even though it's probably initialized as 0, it looks better. It's cleaner to do that as well. Unit test, calculate, it says 0, add rows, still 0, add 1 error. It says 1, add some more, and it counts 5 errors. Great, that's exactly what we wanted. And now we can, in the next video, move on to implement an assert function to add these rows by checking if we got an error or not in our test. So looking forward to that. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notifications, and hit the bell button so that you get the notifications when we release new videos, so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. See you next week.